Shabbat Shalom, my friends, and welcome to a unique community dedicated to entering into a 2,000-year-old and still running conversation with the Torah text. Our Sedra this week is Vayigash, Genesis 44:18 and following. But to give everybody, first of all, a heads up, next Shabbat morning, December 22nd, you should be planning a siyum, a party to celebrate the close of the reading of the first book of the Torah, the book of Genesis. In my family, we haven't had a proper party since the last days of Hanukkah. So another celebration is definitely in order. Okay. Hatred, especially causeless hatred, is one of the most destructive forces in human society. The rabbis blamed causeless hatred, sinat chinam, for most of the internal tragedies that befell our people, most especially the civil war that opened the way for the destruction of Jerusalem's second temple. When Jew hates Jew, then our community cannot survive. Over and over again, the rabbis described how Hillel and Shammai and their schools in the first century CE disagreed just about over every single item of Jewish law. But that profound set of disagreements never stopped them from treating each other civilly. Our teachers wanted the behavior of the school of Hillel, the school of Shammai, to govern our own relationships with those with whom we might disagree. That's causeless hatred. And if causeless hatred between individuals or groups or political parties or ideological opponents is destructive, then hatred between siblings, even worse. Think about Cain and Abel. Think about Isaac and Ishmael. Think about Jacob and Esau. And for us, the last several weeks of readings from the book of Genesis find their narrative power precisely from playing out the impact of jealousy and arrogance and competition and just plain meanness in the lives of Joseph and his brothers. Brothers casually planning fratricide. A son ripped away from his father. A father left to grieve for his beloved son, ignorant of what was really going on. A young man who was thrown first into a pit and then into an alien culture where his life was very much on the line. But that's all over with now, right? Everything is going to be good between Joseph and his brothers. The brothers stand before the man they know of as Tzafnat Paneach. My translation, Lord Dream Interpreter. Viceroy of Egypt, second in power only to the god King Pharaoh. The brothers have been stripped of everything, their pride, their self-worth, their very hope of survival. They even think that they're about to lose their youngest brother, Benjamin, who was the only full brother of that kid, Joseph, whom they had sold into slavery decades before. Benjamin, who was the only surviving son of their father's beloved wife, Rachel. Suddenly this Tzafnat Paneach calls out to all of the Egyptian officials, the Egyptian equivalent of the phrase, "Give me the room." The Egyptians quickly withdraw. Velo Yachol Yosef lehetapek, and Joseph simply couldn't restrain himself any longer. He began sobbing loudly, uncontrollably, before the frightened men he knew to be his brothers. Ani Yosef, ha'od Avichai. I am Joseph. Is Dad still alive? Why were the Egyptians cleared out of that room? The commentators Forno said that Joseph bore great burdens of leadership. He could not afford to display any personal weakness before those whom he depended upon to carry out his wishes. All right. Rashi said that Joseph didn't want to embarrass his brothers in front of strangers. He didn't want the story of how brothers treated their brother played out in front of the Egyptians. All right. Others taught that Joseph physically could not allow his tears to flow when he was in the presence of strangers. He was drowning in tears he simply could not shed. Drowning in tears he could not shed. Decades of pain were dammed up because of that moment's lack of intimacy and privacy. So the room was cleared. Now Joseph could weep without the world knowing. But Joseph failed. His crying became a primal scream. Vayishma'u Mitzrayim vayishma Beit Paro. All of Egypt heard their viceroy scream in anguish, and Joseph's wailing penetrated the walls of the royal palace as well. There would be no secret reconciliation. There would be no privacy. Barbanel tried to understand what was going on here. Joseph stood at the very pinnacle of power. All right, he wasn't a god like Pharaoh, but his social rank was such that it never could have happened that he would publicly display public emotion. But what Joseph was showing the Egyptians, Barbanel taught, were tears of love, of reconciliation, of forgiveness. And when Joseph did that, he actually transferred to his brothers some of his own status, we'd say in Israel today, his protectia to his brothers. Is there any other proof that these were tears of love? So Barbanel challenges us. What were Joseph's first words after identifying himself? Is Dad still alive? Avichai. Now Joseph had already been told that Jacob was still living. So what was the point of asking a question, the answer to which he obviously already knew? The brothers hated Joseph because of the special favor that Jacob had lavished upon Joseph. So Joseph was shouting out, I need you to know openly, explicitly, that in the face of all of those memories, I forgive you. Joseph's tears were really tears of love. And one contemporary commentator adds that Joseph was weeping because for the first time since his rise to power, he comes to know the very limitations of that power. The Joseph story turns out to be a startling, insightful critique of the limitations of power then and now. Rabbi Beryl Wine reminds us that tears serve many purposes. We weep over our own pain. We weep for the pain of others. We weep for those whom we have caused to suffer. Tears are understood by our tradition to be so precious that they say that God stores up human tears in a jar that is always kept near the throne of glory. And the tears that we shed can therefore also be understood as offerings placed on the altar itself before God. Psalms 51 tells us that a broken heart is a perfect offering to God. Not only do we weep outwardly, but as the story of Joseph seems to indicate, my friends, our souls weep their own tears. What an image. Our souls weep their own tears. Joseph now weeps on 7 different occasions. No one, here's something that you have to learn, no one in the Torah weeps more often than Joseph, nor does anyone in the Torah weep for so many different reasons. A Chabad website had a poignant take on human tears, describing how tears express passion, pain. These are all genuine emotions. Tears express our most sincere feelings, the truest part. Those feelings are the truest part of who we are. Tears of love, tears of joy, tears of forgiveness. My friends, weeping is one of the most authentic, most human things that we can do. The inability to weep would seem to speak to a lock placed on the doorways to our hearts and to our souls, keeping everything in. Think back over the past year and years. When did we weep? Why did we weep? Have we allowed our tears to heal us? Have we allowed the tears of our souls to be set as an offering on an altar before God? Have we allowed our tears to say what we never could find the words for us to say on our own? Have we allowed our tears to restore balance to our lives? Wow. I like the part about the soul weeps its own tears. That's it for today. Might I just pray that the tears we shed now and in the future will most often be expressions of joy, of reconciliation, of love. Shabbat Shalom. Oh, and while we're at it, please hit share and have a wonderful week.